Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Dental Disruptors podcast. I am Jake Larson, your host, here with my co-host Clint Berry and our new friend Caitlin Zulfic. Am I pronouncing that right?
Zulfic.
Zulfic. I should have asked that earlier. But yeah, we our paths crossed with Caitlin at an event that we went to this year. Just literally crossed. That was about it. But afterwards, I saw what she was doing with her new consulting business, and I thought Caitlin would be a great person to talk to. So we invited her on. We discussed some different things that she's seeing in the industry that we could discuss. And the topic that we landed on, I'm actually really excited to discuss. We're going to talk about KPIs, and there's good, and maybe a lot of people don't think of the bad that might come from KPIs and how that might disrupt the office in a positive or a negative way. So we're excited to dig into this. Caitlin, so much for thank you for being here with us and taking some time out of your day.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to join you guys.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun.
Before we get into the topic, Caitlin, let's get to know you first. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. How did you get into dentistry and how did you get into consulting now?
So I'll try to give this a condensed version. Dental found me. I was actually serving in a restaurant shortly after I quit a pre-med track in college. I wanted to be a doctor. But I found quickly that path really wasn't for me. I learned a little bit about the medical dynamic and I thought, oh, this is going to feel really restrictive. And I learned really early in my 20s that leadership was something that I wanted to do, but kind of didn't know how to get there. So I started building a mental path of I'm here, I'm young, I kind of don't know what I'm doing, but I want to help people in some facet. I want to make an impact. That word kept coming up for me. And so a friend of mine, she was a hygienist. She joined a private husband and wife practice in Western Massachusetts. And she said, you should come here. They're looking for a front desk person. The least look at it as a resume building opportunity. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll join. So I went. I was terrible. I actually was one of the worst people at the front desk. I didn't want to talk to people. I was really afraid of rejection. And so that was sitting in my stomach most days. And I was just begging to get out of the front desk. I wanted to actually work on reports, collections. And thankfully, they did not let me stop myself. They actually gave me a pep talk about how I dressed, how I presented myself. And I learned, I went out, I think I had $20 in my bank account, shopped the clearance rack at a couple of stores, bought 2 outfits and rinsed and repeated for several weeks before I had more money in my bank account to buy more. But I started to learn how to be a professional. And I took the feedback and I started opening myself up and trying to be really positive at the front desk and give people a wow experience. And that took time, didn't happen overnight, but they definitely worked with me on that. And I took an interest in insurance. I eventually got my way and got to do both. So I was able to do collections and I grew a real passion for helping people. I think confidence comes when you do something repeatedly that you're afraid of doing. And that was my first lesson in that. I was afraid of engaging with people, but the more I did it, the more positive feedback I got, the more I wanted to do it. And now, flash forward to today, you can't get me to shut up.
That would be a fly in the wall. That's a cool progression, right? And I love.
I want to hear a little bit more about that story. So they hired you to be the front desk. They actually gave you good feedback. Like I think a lot of employers will just be like, "Oh, this isn't working out," and let you go, right? If they don't feel like you're doing a good job. Why do you think they had the wherewithal to give you good feedback? And then you took it, obviously, which is amazing, and changed and became better. But what was different about them? What did they just have faith in you? Like they met you and liked you, or what happened there?
Honestly, I don't know. I was in my early 20s and looking back, I didn't realize what was happening in the moment. Hindsight's 2020, right? So looking back, I was like, wow, I have a great appreciation for the fact that they were honest with me. I actually remember the conversation very clearly. The wife brought me into this back consulting room that had one glass door. And I remember sitting there and I used to wear those, you guys might know this, maybe you're part of my generation we were talking about earlier, but the pants with the strings hanging off of them, they're almost like those big bulky cargo pants.
Yep.
And I had this double layered tank top shirt on with like the nicest thing I had on was a cardigan, and I wore flip flops. No one gave me, no one gave me an intro, right? Like no one said, here's the dress code. So
Yeah.
onboarding, that's a thing many practices struggle with, but sometimes you have to realize you have to be very clear with people what you want from them. And nobody was clear with me on that. And they sat me down and she said, this whole thing, this can't happen again.
Even with the hand motion, right?
The hand motion. So tomorrow, here's what I want you to look like. And I was embarrassed, like good shame. I talk about Brene Brown a lot in leadership. Shame is not something to be feared. Shame is good in certain contexts. And that was good shame for me, where I thought, oh my God, I had a self-awareness moment. Flip-flops are not okay. I don't look professional. And like I mentioned, I went to New York and Company that night, shopped the clearance rack, got like $3 shirts and just figured it out, right? And when I came in, I got really positive feedback from it. It wasn't just that they gave me that constructive feedback, but the next day they were like, Caitlin, like, this is perfect. Keep doing this. And so I felt good. I remember the feedback, obviously, because I'm sharing this story so many years later. This was in 2006. But that was so impactful, but what was more impactful was the positive response I got when I did the right thing. I got more encouragement to keep doing so.
I love this so much. And I know this isn't the whole thing we want to talk about, but I'm glad to hear this story. I read that book, Radical Candor, and it kind of changed my life as far as like realizing how crappy of a manager I was like previously, where I just avoided the conflict. And yeah, like lots of times if it wasn't working out with an engineer or whatever, you let him go, and it didn't help them at all. Like, and so the fact that, this first job in your early 20s like changed your life because you had someone that actually
Was a good
was
leader.
honest with you and opened up to you and said, no, this is how you do this. And instead of just being like, this isn't going to work. Like, I love those stories so much. And so I want to make sure I'm that kind of manager. And then when I love that the second part of it is amazing too, right? When you change, they gave you positive reinforcement. It's like the best. I love it. It's so good.
There was actually a cool second part to this story. So I got pretty good at the front, but I went from a fast-paced restaurant where, again, hindsight's 2020, I didn't realize I was really good under pressure. I hadn't made that connection yet, that as I really was going to thrive in operations because it's pulling all these pieces together. And just like when you're serving, you're getting drinks, you're taking orders, different tables, got to make sure the food's coming up. Did I go back to this table again? So that experience helped me with really managing chaos, like a dance. And so when I went to a dental practice, the phone's ringing every 5 minutes. I'm kind of sitting there. I don't know dental so well. I'm not sure what to pull for reporting. Like, I was so green. And I would doodle. Even to this day, I have sticky notes. And I'm in my zone. I actually doodle. And I remember the husband came to me. I can't tell you timelines, but there was at one point he sat down and he said, so you have some time to doodle. So I want you to work on this. And he pulls out an aging report. And he showed me line by line what he wanted me to do. I want you to call this insurance. We're going to do a couple of them together. Now, again, looking back, to have a dentist do that for me was so good. One, he gave me, again, great feedback. I got the message in a good way that the doodling was not good. But I continued to doodle anyway, because that's how my mind works. I'm a creative brain. So I learned to embrace that. I used to shame that quite a bit for many years. I was like, every time I doodled or got a little distracted, I used to kind of say, oh, don't be like that. Try to be like other people, keep your focus. But again, as I've grown and matured, I've realized that that's actually a superpower of mine, is the ability to see many pieces going on, to almost be like, I've been called the drone in some organizations I've been at. I've been called the chess player, where I can put people together and help them thrive. Like, I just kind of see things from a high level. So I've learned to embrace that side of myself. Mm-hmm. But it was such good feedback, because then I actually got really good at another area I wasn't good at, which was asking people for money and collecting, and saying it in a way that didn't demean the patients, but also held a standard so that the practice could make money. And I was good at that too. And I got rewarded for it. And it was very soon after that, they started to give me increases in my pay. They came to me directly and said, Caitlin, you're doing a good job. we want to give you more money. And I never expected it. It just happened on this like every 3-4 month cadence. They kept bumping me up and it encouraged me. And I wanted to work harder for them.
So awesome. Well, now look, you're in a position that you can pass this knowledge on to other people, right? Like the growth is fantastic. So tell us, how did you decide that it was time to launch Fox and Lotus, your consulting business?
And how did you name it?
Yeah, we gotta get a story there.
I'll get the name in 1 second, but going back to the 20s era, I found a lot of value in that beginning stage of my life because I was thinking through what I wanted to do. And I knew what I didn't want to do, but I wasn't clear on what I actually wanted. And so I think at that point I had a very fuzzy dream that one day I was going to run a company. Whether it be online retail, something, I don't know what it was going to be, but I was like, I know that I can influence more if I am able to run something myself. And it wasn't for the money. I wasn't sitting there going, man, I want to be a millionaire. I was thinking, I want to take people who haven't received opportunity in their life, and I want to provide that. I want to open doors for people, not close them. I had struggles going to college, getting funding for college, and then shortly after dealing with the weight of all of those loans while not really having a career path was super hard. I remember actually scraping quarters off of my car floor to put gas in my car to go to work. Like I went through that phase and not having anyone I could fall back on. So that built for me a deep desire to want to help other people excel. And I quit my education. Like I don't have a degree where I'm at in my career. I've gone back 2 or 3 times and didn't finish it. It's still in the works. It's the degree I'll probably finish when I'm 90. But my message there is like, you can do really amazing things with experience, not necessarily with having to put yourself into all this debt, to think you should be a leader, right? Or to follow or to be an entrepreneur. So I had that thought many, many years ago, but I did not have the confidence that I could run a company. And so I had all of these jobs that exposed me to running revenue for other people and growing revenue and being able to, I'm not risk averse. I'm calculated in taking risks, but I would do funky things and just try stuff out. And if it worked, it worked. And I would rinse and repeat. So I had a lot of great opportunities in my career to do that. And then when I met my husband, he really put it in my heart. He said, you are really good at what you do. You can work for anybody you want. You can have any job you want, or you can work for yourself. And it just, again, started to really become clear how to do it. He's an entrepreneur, and it just kind of set the wheels in motion. And then with my most recent role, the epiphany kind of hit me after that I was ready and I was just going to go in and do it now.
So awesome. And the name, we got to hear the story behind the name.
So Fox and Lotus, I've always had kind of these weird signs in my life that I'm on the right path. The Lotus sort of came up for me in a very transitional phase of my life and my career. And its symbolism for me was that it grows through mud, water, and rises to be this beautiful flower. But it goes through some hard stuff to get there. And so I saw synchronicity with being in an operations role or driving a company. It has a lot of meaning. But for me, operators go through very hard things, the mud, the water. And yet, there's this beautiful ending, right? And it symbolizes resilience. So when I remember taking a little questionnaire to my friends, I read a book and I asked my friends, what's the best quality I have? Just tell, what do I remind you of? Tell me anything, an animal, whatever. And I kept getting the butterfly and I kept getting resilience. So I kind of had this other symbolism with monarch butterflies. They take these long trips to Mexico. They're delicate, and yet they can do this massive migration. And so for me, there was symbolism and resilience. And the lotus flower kind of pictured for me one piece of operations and how challenging that can be, right? And then the fox, again, comes up so much. When I met my husband, he actually lives in Fox Valley in Illinois. I didn't know that till I got here to visit him. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting and how appropriate. But the fox navigates different terrain. It can live in any terrain. You see them in deserts. There's fox types in the mountains. There's fox in the snow. they can live and pretty much adapt to anything. And so therein goes the word adaptability in operations as well. So I really felt that those two things together define for me what it's like to run operations. You have to be adaptable and you have to be resilient.
Hey, Clint,
That
why'd you
story
pick the
was
name of
about
Kala?
10 times better than I was expecting.
Yeah,
Like, to have that much meaning in your name is awesome.
so good. Yeah.
And I thought, I was like, how's this going to land on people? And then, we were talking about Sarah Ruberg, and she's a kind of screw it, like let the sparkles out. And I was like, I don't need to have a dental brand company, and that's fine for people who do, but that didn't resonate with me. And so I just did it. I was like, this is going to be my brand. And funny story, I created an Instagram account. I took the handle for Fox and Lotus Co. 7 years ago. And the reason I took it was because I thought I was going to do a jewelry retail brand. But then I renamed the Instagram account for Fox and Lotus Consulting, which Meta deactivated. So I'm in the process of trying to get it back.
I hate that.
But it all just like the pieces just started to really come together for me. And I just followed my heart. And that's what got me here.
Oh, that's so
awesome.
great.
I love how you're very intentional about how you do things, which is awesome.
Yeah, I love it. We're big fans of Sarah too, and I love that. Yeah, she's not afraid to let out the sparkles and unicorns. So that's the best.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into the KPI stuff now. Let's talk about the role of KPIs in dentistry. I feel like there's been like an evolution of KPIs, right? As products like Dental Intel and other things have come out, it's really enabled KPIs to take a different stage. But why have KPIs become such a deal in dental organizations, and what have you seen?
So I've seen a variety of different metrics. I think there's so much access to data now in dental, where when I started, there was really no data. We didn't have a dashboard. We pulled reports out of old Dentrix. We called it the core program. And you kind of just flew with your own thing, your own guidelines, right? And over the years, organizations, especially with scaling, they need reliable data and some synchronicity in their organizations. They can't just have everybody focused on different things, right? So with this demand to streamline things, to make things scalable, KPIs are like, to me, I love data. We'll talk about some of the issues with it, but data is important. It's key. You can't fly blind. I've heard of organizations where people are like, oh, I don't even know what's going on. I just look at what's in the bank account. And I'm like, oh gosh, that kills my soul a little to hear that. But I think over the years, it's become more abundant and understood that data is like it's like your pulse check on your organization. And then you can tell, okay, what do I need to do to solve like a patient experience issue or a collections issue?
And I think, coming from our background at Weave and in the tech space, KPIs are like must-haves, always been there as long as we've been there. But I'm really interested to hear your take on this, because I think that I think most people generally understand the good that KPIs bring, right? And helping us have a pulse to manage the business as a whole. But let's talk about the dark side of KPIs. When you said that to me and some of the negatives, tell me kind of what you mean by the dark side of KPIs that you've seen.
So the biggest one that comes to mind is I can't tell you how many times I've heard a staff member or an employee or team member say, all this company cares about is the money, or the company only cares about the numbers. I used to look at that and say, challenge accepted. I'm going to help you understand why these numbers are so important. And I kept hitting a wall. I was guilty of this. I was guilty of overexposing people to numbers. And I'll talk about, I think the dental space is so nimble. When we say go collect money, when we say fill the schedule, generally people start doing that. You don't have too much pushback. I mean, they might be annoyed that the directions change, but they'll go do it. And so we've created we see a number and we say, okay, go ahead and go work on this. but we've lost the humanity in those numbers, right? So the way they go about filling the schedule or being so production driven, the day starts with this, hey, we want to hit 10K today, or we want to hit 20K today. How are we going to do that? The focus is on hitting 10 or 20K, not on patient care. So that layer of like that compassion, like they're driven in their soul to hit a goal to get money, right? Or they're motivated by some bonus or some reason to do something, as opposed to doing it because they really genuinely care about people. And they probably do genuinely care about people, but if the message is over and over and over again, get the numbers, get the numbers, get the numbers, they're going to get the numbers, but they're not going to do it well. They're not going to end that with a 5-star experience, right?
So it's not necessarily that you're saying that the KPIs themselves are bad. They're necessary. It's more like how they're used, and if not communicated well or managed well from a leadership perspective, then you're at risk of impacting your team culture in a negative way, impacting the patient experience in a negative way. So how would you recommend that people find that balance of still maintaining a focus on these KPIs, but doing it in a way that's more productive for the patient experience and for the employee experience too?
I'll be transparent and honest. I'm still trying to find my balance, because I went from a company in the beginning that didn't touch on KPIs at all to a DSO that had 100 locations that focused on KPIs and P&Ls and exposing managers to that. And then I thought it would be wise to give that to front desk or DAs and say, hey, here's your metrics to look at. And it backfired. I thought, oh, I'm excited about data. You'll be excited about data. But I'm in a different role, right? I'm not a dental assistant that truly their frustration when they hear about how they're performing, their job is to create great experiences with their dentist. Their job is to serve their dentist, not to serve the KPI. And so those KPIs have a place, but they have a place for certain people. And there's stuff that at a higher level, I do not believe people in the team need to know about. I think it complicates things. When you don't have enough knowledge about something, that's where you start hearing, well, this company only cares about money, because that's what you're showing people you care about. If your messaging is, hey, we care about the patient experience, we want to make sure every patient leaves the office with a scoring that they feel they were heard at their visit. What are people going to do? They're going to listen. But if you say, I want every patient to leave with the next appointment and that's it, yeah, they'll leave with a next appointment. The front desk might actually book it for them and send them a text and say, by the way, I stuck in January, and the patient might ignore that message and then never show up because they didn't intend to schedule anyway. So some of that, like, you don't even have communication, right, as a fundamental KPI. So I started talking about EPIs recently, like empathy performance indicators, which I'm partnering up. Like, I really am leaning into what Matt Allen is doing at Different Kind, because he is measuring empathy in his satisfaction scores. And so I think we need to go as an industry beyond Google reviews. I don't think that this solves much of anything except for your marketing. But getting true patient experiences, you need a set of questions that are the same for every patient to talk about. Google's free form. It doesn't hit if the patient was called by their name, or how long they waited in the waiting room before they were called back, or if the dentist spoke to them in language they understood. You're not capturing that data in a free form Google review, right? They might just give you 5 stars and say nothing. So I think we have to challenge ourselves as an organization, as a industry, to think about what are we actually tracking and why are we tracking it? And if it's patient care we're focused on, we have to get back to like tracking how we engage with patients.
I like this a lot, and I like these new like metrics that maybe aren't talked a lot about in dentistry. This is excellent. So you guys are putting together some surveys, sounds like, to measure the patient experience better. Does that sound correct?
Well, I'll be clear, Matt, this is Matt's thing. He started this a long time ago. I just got aware. I became aware of it in the last like 6 months or so. because I started to go down a path similar. And then as I was digging, I was like, well, Matt's already doing this, right? And so for me, in my clients, and when I start like investigating how culture is, because he's not just tying in the patient experience, he's also tying in how employees feel. And the irony is, if you do any of these super expensive surveys like Gallup, or I'm trying to think like Press Ganey, people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to do these like pulse surveys on employees that, I'm sorry, but half of them go nowhere. Like no one does anything with the data. They kind of just stop. They get the data, but they don't know what to do with it. You spend that much money on that side of the survey. And the irony is the practices that have lower patient satisfaction scores have lower employee engagement scores. There's a correlation there. So if you have higher employee satisfaction, you have higher patient engagement. Why? Because happy people make happy people. Unhappy people will deliver unhappy experiences, right? Not intentionally, it's not their fault. But I think as leaders, we get so KPI driven, we start kind of packing that in. It starts to feel like this pressure from the top. And it's right. That's exactly what they're feeling, pressure from the top. And it's getting shoved in their day, and the patient experience becomes secondary. And what becomes primary is what home office wants, what the KPIs say, right? So we're missing it. I think as an industry, we're just really focused on the wrong stuff.
One thing I learned and Clint and I will both speak to this because at we did not have a lot of experience leading and managing people. We learned a lot along the way as we were there, but especially being on the sales side, sales is a department that is very, very KPI driven because it's so transparent how one is performing. So the lesson that I learned as far as managing KPIs with culture is, and you kind of hit on this, it's like helping people understand the why and understanding that KPIs often are lagging indicators. They're a result of what has the work that's already been put in. Mm-hmm. So it could be getting close to the end of the quarter, end of the month, and I could come to salespeople and I could just, be that manager that would just say like, hey, are you going to hit your numbers? Like, and I could make them feel that pressure from the top. When really, if you're that far in, the KPIs are already showing they're going to miss, or we're going to whatever. The work I've already failed that person as a manager because I'm looking at just lagging indicators that are like, hey, did we get 10K today? Did we hit our number and we got 3 days left? Like, no, the work is already done. There's not some magical thing that's going to fix it. And really, the best management that or I guess the best lessons that I learned was trying to stay engaged along the way to impact the day-to-day, indicators that were going to be that would help them get there at the end of the day, right? Not just focusing on the lagging, but and I think you hit on that when you talked about the why. Like, why are we doing this? And if we are focusing on happy employees and happy experiences along the way, the natural thing is that the lagging indicator hitting the number at the end of the quarter and the month, it's going to happen if you put the work in earlier, right? If you're not just focused on only the KPI, but making sure that you're understanding the things like you're talking about that are going to be most impactful to hitting that number at the end. So I love your transparency that you're saying like, hey, I'm still trying to figure this out as we go. And just from my experience managing salespeople in organizations that's so KPI driven, it's having clarity around what's going to make the biggest impact to make sure we hit our numbers. And like you're saying, if you're providing a great patient experience and your employees are happy, the likelihood of you hitting those numbers are probably significantly higher. But that's work that has to be done way, way before the deadline comes due.
Yeah, it's behaviors, and you nailed it. I said this in an article in a blog that I wrote. Production and collection are lagging indicators. Case acceptance is a lagging indicator. If you look at that, anything at the end of day, it's a lagging indicator. It's something that happened. You can't change it. You can't go back and redo yesterday, right? So if the behaviors we're driving are through metrics and numbers, and there's no talk about, hey, when you're on the phone and someone calls and says, hey, I'm in pain, I want to make sure every single patient that says they're in pain, the answer is, I'm so sorry to hear that. I want you to know we're going to take care of you. What time can you get here? That is the message. There's nothing, right? I called, my husband had an experience recently. He needed some root canals. He was at a 10 out of 10 pain. I called 7 dental practices. I was willing to go 2 hours from my house, right, to have someone see my husband. 7 different offices. There was one office that said, I'm sorry. Guess where we went?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I had an endodontist office say, yeah, what's his insurance?
Can we actually get paid on this?
I was like, you know what? You need Mango. You need to call Mango. You need Patient Prism. Any of the please. Someone manage this.
Yeah, so those leading indicators are so important, right? That are going to help you. And wow, that's so cool.
It's making me wonder, like, what other metrics dentists like should be like. One thing we use in product all the time is the Net Promoter Score, which is like, how likely are you to, on a scale of 1 to 10, to recommend? Would you recommend friends to this dentist? Or usually it's for this product, but that seems like it'd be a really cool metric to add into this to see. It's just like another way to measure patient experience. You wouldn't get the details, but you at least have a number that you could work on. That's super interesting.
Well, if I had a practice, that's where I would start, actually. I would start measuring engagement with Matt's system, different kind, because it has that in there. It's a day-to-day at net performance, or a net, what did you say? Net promoter score.
Net promoter score, yeah.
But again, the problem with these net promoter scores is they go out like a blast. You get them, do them every 6 months. Like, it's too far. You don't know who wants to know how their patients feel every 6 months? I don't. I want to know how they feel every day. I want to know if those behaviors are transferring into the patient. And the reality is, leaders have to take a step back. When the team isn't doing something, it's not, why aren't they doing this? I'm going to put my hand up and say I've said that. I have actually done that and been like, what is wrong with people? Hello, it's not what's wrong with people. It's what's wrong with the system. The system is broken. Yep. And if you keep trying to push that behavior and you think it's the definition of insanity, if you keep going every day pushing the same things and it's not working, you have to be willing to change it.
Yeah. And that starts with the leader, right? I remember Ray Caruso at that event that we met at, he spoke, I don't know if you remember his message, but he talked about how he had a leadership epiphany moment where he felt the same way, like, why aren't they doing this? Then he took a step back and he learned, like, people are good, that generally, like, they want to do a good job. They want to be successful. They want to be recognized for what they're doing. So if they want to do a good job, why aren't they? It's typically the leader or a system or something that's preventing them from doing it, that the leadership needs to take a step back, like you said, and recognize, is that the shortcoming? Because if the people aren't trained or aren't, there's something happening prior to that lagging indicator, the end result, that hasn't been done earlier. And that stood out for me from what Ray shared. I don't know if you remember that message.
I do. It was very powerful. I think he was up there for like 5 minutes and I was like, wow. I had the wow feeling listening to him. I think the key is, as a leader, your job is to start cutting things out. We've done really well as an industry building in, right? We talk about dentistry as an overabundance of technology. One of my areas of expertise is helping a dental practice reorganize their tech stack. Because before you can help people, you have to understand if your technology is actually serving them or inhibiting them. If the technology is making their job harder, guess what? It's time to take a step back, look at that technology, and ask yourself why you have it there in the first place. Did you put it in there because one practice didn't do well on something, so you made everybody do it? That tends to be reactionary. One person doesn't do something, so we make everybody change something. We make it all an issue when it's not that. It may just be an isolated issue. So I help people build a tech stack first. You take a step back before you move forward. Let's reset. Let's make sure you have all the technology you need at this stage in your growth. And then let's start empowering your people to own that. So when you add in technology, then those KPIs, where appropriate, they get managed by the people in the office. It's not a top-down thing. Mm-hmm. So if you have buy-in from your DA, right? Like, they want patient care. And you go to the DA and you say, hey, what's stopping most of the patients from doing the treatment? Well, they can't afford it. Okay, well, my job as a leader is to go figure out how I'm going to find solutions to help them have the patients afford it. but then I'm going to let the dental assistant have the power over that use of that financing option because they're in that space, right? You have to find your key players, and it's not one size fits all. I think at the end of the day, you really have to get to know your people, and that takes time, and people want to shortcut that, and it never works. You have to get to know your people, and you have to understand their whys and meet them where they are. Don't change them. Help them thrive in the environment and the role that they're in, and let their voice be heard. You're going to have a really successful practice if you're able to engage everyone that way.
It's funny how things go full circle, because that's how Caitlin got to where she is today. She had an office and leaders that did that.
That's true.
So cool. Well, I think it's fascinating that, we built this topic around KPIs and understanding that, the KPIs themselves are important, and everybody agrees in that, but they have to be managed properly with good leadership, so that they can have the impact that they should. And I love the mindset and the philosophy that you're bringing to this. I think it's awesome. We'll probably have to do a follow-up episode and check in and see how it's going.
Definitely. I would love to join you guys again. This was great.
Yeah. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us. Before we let you go, for those that would like to follow you, get in touch with you, work with you, tell our listeners how they might be able to get in touch.
So I'm building my social media now, so you can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. My handle is Moeller Magistrate on those 3 platforms. LinkedIn, it's just my Caitlin Zulfic. And if you want to email me, it's info@foxandlotusconsulting.com. And I have the website foxandlotus.com as well, consulting.com. That also has a blog that you can sign up for and get weekly updates. So you don't have to worry about popping back onto the website, but you can get it right to your inbox.
Love it. Awesome. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for taking some time with us. Thanks everybody for listening. And we will catch y'all next time. Thank you.